Welcome to the Coaches Spotlight podcast, the show where you'll be listening to coaches from around the globe that share their pitfalls and struggles all the way up to what made them successful in their field. Ready to catapult your coaching business past the competition? Then grab your favorite beverage and get ready to listen to meaningful conversations and learn from industry experts. Here's your host, Oliver Momeni.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Our next guest provides quick and powerful breakthroughs for high achievers ready to end their internal battles with imposter syndrome, procrastination, and overwhelm. She's a master practitioner of mental emotional release therapy, hypnosis, and neuro-linguistic programming, in short, NLP. She's also a certified NLP trainer, coach, and Reiki Master who uses an integrative initiative approach with each client. Please welcome Suzanne Palmer-Wood. Welcome to the show, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Now, we always start off the show with getting an insight from our guests with what they're specialized in and what is the outcome they guide people towards. In other words, what is your signature coaching program?
So I really specialize in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, and mental emotional release, or MER. So really, I would say I'm a mindset coach, and I'm also an energy worker because I also am a Reiki Master. I do Huna energy, theta healing, and several other modalities. And the outcome that I lead people towards is being able to take a breath and learn how to trust themselves, so that no matter what's going on around them, they know that they can come back and handle whatever it is. So just really helping them release all the things that they're not so they can be authentically who they are.
So if you want to find out more about Suzanne's program, then head on over to SuzannePalmerwood.com. Now, before we move on, for those of you that are a coach or a consultant, or you want to become one and have not created your signature program yet, then you're leaving a ton of money on the table. But no worries, I got you covered. My team and I have put together a guide that teaches exactly how to design your signature program. The exercises throughout the guide will systematically help you in creating a successful program all the way up to how much to charge for it. So if you want to grab a free copy of this guide, then head on over to CoachesSpotlight.com/guide. That's CoachesSpotlight.com/guide. Suzanne, share with us a success quote or mantra and an example of how you've applied its meaning in your life.
You know, my favorite mantra is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's my favorite because it reminds me that there's more than one way to look at things. And so often we get really hyper-focused on something and think that there's no way out or that they can't do something. And just speaking from personal experience, for such a long time, I thought I couldn't make a significant change in my life that I needed to make because I made so much money, because my family was happy, because everything looked on the outside like it was great. But when I changed the way that I looked at things, then those things change. So more specifically, and it's a kind of a fun example that people can look at practically, is there was this one time when my daughter had just gotten married, and she and her husband gave my husband and I tickets to the Seattle Symphony featuring Macklemore and Russell Wilson, who's the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL, which is right in our backyard. So we were really excited. Except cool. I had been working really hard and really long days up until then. And the ladies out there will probably appreciate this, although I think we all go through this. I was feeling very sluggish, unattractive, and not ready for public consumption. So if it had been any other day, it would have been great. My husband was excited to go see Russell Wilson. Sure. It sounded great, but I just was not in the frame of mind to go be happy and be around a lot of people. But I went. So I took a shower and I squeezed on my Spanx and I threw on a dress, and then I put a big coat over me to kind of hide behind. And then while I was there, I was kind of shrinking behind my husband a little bit, so that I thought, right, that I could not be seen because I just wasn't feeling good. I just wasn't feeling attractive. I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling socially intimidated or shy. And I was looking around. And so my narrow focus was, I look terrible and I'm tired and I wish it was another day. So then with that focus, my brain started showing me evidence of that truth. So I started noticing how beautiful and happy everyone around me was, which made me feel worse and worse. So I did what a lot of us do, is I went and I hid in the ladies' room. So I went to the lady, my husband, meanwhile, was like, what is wrong with you? What is going on? Why can't you enjoy this? He's one of the most positive, optimistic people I know. He's like, just enjoy this. What is wrong? You look great. And I went to the ladies' room. I'm just feeling gross. And I come out of the stall and I wash my hands and I look in the mirror and I go, oh man, I'm a mindset coach. What am I doing? I know how this works. So I went back into the stall. And what I did was I did a process where I took myself back to very specific times when I had experienced the states or the emotional states that I wanted to feel right now, but I felt it back then. So I wanted to feel beautiful. So I remembered a specific time. I closed my eyes and I took myself back to my wedding day in Maui, where I just felt beautiful, not only because I love my wedding dress, but because I was surrounded by the people that I love and the environment that I love that made me so happy. I was so happy and just felt on top of the world. And in my mind's eye, I looked around what was happening at that time. I listened to the sounds and I turned up the feeling of what it felt like to just feel this beautiful inside and out. And then I thought, when was a time when I laughed out loud hysterically? And I thought of a time when we were playing board games, because during holidays and family dinner nights on Sunday, we play board games and we just crack up. We have a great time. So in this bathroom stall, I find myself laughing out loud as if I was there. And then I thought, when was a specific time when I felt really confident? And I remember a time when I was working at Microsoft and I flew to China to train some engineering teams there. And it was so comfortable and it was so easy. And I had so much fun and I felt so confident and congruent in what I was doing. And I embodied that in my mind's eye. I saw what I saw during that time. I heard what I heard inside and out. And I felt those feelings. And before long, I took off my jacket, I took off my Spanx and I shoved them in my purse and I sauntered out of that bathroom right up to my husband and I looped my arm in his and I said, let's go. And he's like, whoa, what happened to you? But I felt on top of the world. And so the difference is when I changed the way that I looked at the situation changed. Because it's not really, the other thing I guess that kind of goes along with it is it's not the circumstances that determine how you feel. Right? You get to choose.
It just shows that all starts and ends with mindset and that we can change the state of our mind in an instant. But unfortunately, too many people see mindset as some kind of a woo-woo thing, right? And I believe the main reason for that is because people are too comfortable to wrap their head around something they are not familiar with. So they try to avoid it entirely, which is a pity because research shows that neuroscience is real and the same goes for NLP. That said, NLP is the main reason why I stopped smoking. I was smoking for over 20 years, but I wanted to stop, and this time for real, as I tried to stop before, but I never pulled it through, up until I did my NLP Practitioner. Which reminds me, I'm actually overdue in starting my master's. Anyhow, so from one day to another, I decided I'm going to stop. And I remember that day as if it was yesterday. I was in my office and I did the typical thing. I lit up a cigarette and while I was smoking it, I said, this is the last one. And in that very moment, I knew that I had the mental mindset that I would never touch a cigarette ever again. And that is now over 8 years ago, which proves NLP works.
Yeah, absolutely. And, along those lines, you just think of Nelson Mandela and how, he was in prison for so long. And, Tony Robbins interviewed him and he said, I used that time to get ready. and to read, to lead that nation. And Man's Search for Meaning with Viktor Frankl, and how he was in a concentration camp, but again, he managed his mindset and he came out and talked about it. So it really is, we really are creating our reality because we're creating the meaning. So it's not necessarily that we're creating the circumstances in our lives, but we are creating the meaning associated with it. And so that means that we have the power to change how we feel, what we think, and how we respond. And so that's so empowering. And with smoking, I met up with someone at a Starbucks, and he was talking about how he wanted to quit smoking. And I did a quick NLP swish pattern with him right there in Starbucks. And he stopped smoking immediately because he just saw it differently. And so, like you said, you could change your mind in an instant, but sometimes it takes years to get ready to change.
Of course.
So one of the prerequisites for change, for lasting change, is readiness. You have to be ready. I can't do anything to you. It has to be a do with. You have to be ready to change. I can't want it more than you.
No doubt about it. I wanted to stop for years, but I knew it would be difficult because at first it's physical, right? As you're missing the nicotine. However, I knew I needed to be equipped with a mindset that would pull it through to stop harming myself any longer. Specifically looking at how lucky I am to still be alive and be able to sit here and do this podcast. For those of you that want to catch up on why I started this podcast, then go and listen to the very first episode where I talk about how I started as a coach in 2008, which has led to launching this podcast and everything in between. Suzanne, tell us, what was the main reason why you started your coaching business?
Yeah, it's, well, I had started doing health coaching back in 2011 while I was also working more than full time in corporate America and raising teenagers. And I really wanted to help people who were suffering, who were struggling, because that's my story too. And then I did functional medicine coaching, but I couldn't keep up with all of it. So I let coaching go. And then I started up again in 2017 with mindset coaching. But really the story that led to why I do this full time, it leads right into what we were just talking about, how your mindset can change in an instant, but sometimes it takes a long time to get to that point where you're ready. So I was really successful in corporate America. I had a great job working in a very prominent tech company in Seattle. And I had, I was making multiple six figures, and I had the fancy house and the car and the kids, and outwardly it looked like I had it all, right? Like I was hustling for mom of the year and wife of the year and employee, corporate executive of the year. But underneath, well, it looked like I had it all. Underneath, it's kind of like when you see a duck sailing across the pond and it looks all graceful. But if you were to look under the water, you'd see its little feet just paddling like crazy, right? All that work to make it glide, that was me. So on the backside, I was working around the clock. I, was constantly on email. I was constantly on my computer. I was running the kids around. I was trying to keep up with the house, keeping up with the bills, keeping up with everything. And I was exhausted. And after a while, my health started to deteriorate. And I wasn't paying attention to the lack of fulfillment I was experiencing. In fact, I was beating myself up. What's wrong with me? Why can't I be more grateful? Why can't I be happy? I've done all the things that society says will make me happy. Why am I not happy? And so I was just beating myself up on that. And I was already dealing with imposter syndrome of not being good enough, and that they're going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing, even though I was really successful on the outside. And so my health coach noticed, I'm not sleeping. My thyroid had thyroid disease. I was getting some autoimmune diseases, and I was gaining weight even though I'm not digesting my food. She said, Susan, your health is a ticking time bomb. You need to stop because you don't want what's next. And like a lot of us, like I'm sure you and your story, like I can't stop. I've got, we had these big product launches. I was, leading 75 country managers at the time. And I'm like, I can't stop. I have too many people counting on me and too many things to do. There is no way. And then the joke was on me, because here's the truth. You can't outrun God's plan for you. So one morning, right, I was getting ready for work. It was really early. It was another sleepless night of working in my sleep. And as I was looking around trying to figure out, like, what am I going to put on my body? It was one decision too many, and I collapsed to the floor.
Whoops.
And as I laid there, I cried. I cried for the me that was so exhausted and didn't give myself permission to rest. I cried for the me that wanted something more in life and didn't think that I deserved it, or thought I had everything that should make me happy and there was something wrong with me. I couldn't get up for my kids. I couldn't get up for my job. I sure as hell couldn't get up for me. And so I actually ended up being housebound, excuse me, for about 3 months. I was dealing with suicidal ideation. I had to see a therapist a couple of times a day. I had lost my cognitive functioning. And it was a horrible, horrible time in my life that I am now so grateful for, because everything had to burn down in order to get my attention, because I just wasn't paying attention. So during this time, I actually was able to figure out what was driving me. Why was I hustling so hard? And what was I running from? Why couldn't I be still with myself? I had been following Tony Robbins, and I'd gone to 5 of his events. Excuse me, 5 of his events. I had read Jack Canfield, all of the greats, and yet it was staying in my head and not in my heart. So why is that? What was that disconnection?
Mm.
And then a friend, about 3 months later, when I was actually starting to move a little bit more, starting to be able to process a little bit more, she convinced me that time out in nature would be great. And so I flew to Zion National Park, and it's gorgeous. I had never been there before, but it was one of her favorite places. And about 3 days in, I was just in awe of seeing wild turkeys and deers and all these beautiful rocks. And I was feeling at peace. And she was a really good friend that didn't ask me to talk a lot. We would just be together and just be still and be calm, which was really new for me. But then one day she said, I've always wanted to do Angel's Landing. You want to go for a walk? I didn't know what that was. So I said, yeah, I don't know if I can go for a walk. I'm broken. I have no energy. And she said, we'll just take it slow. We'll just stop, and when we want to turn around, we'll turn around. She goes, I'm not feeling that great either. So I said, okay. And we started walking, and then we'd stop, and then we'd walk, and then we'd stop. And if you ever had something kind of creep up on you because you're doing something so gradually that you don't know, it's kind of like the compound effect. You don't realize how long you've been doing it. So as we're walking, eventually I caught on that the walk started getting more vertical. And then before I know it, I'm holding on to change so I don't fall off the face of this cliff. And I'm leaning over the side of the cliff as people are walking down. I'm like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? But for the first time, I felt that stirring, that adrenaline that said, keep going. When it doesn't even make sense, when you get that, keep going.
Yes.
And it was so cool. So I kept going. And I'm like, the top has got to be there soon. When I got to the top, I saw this magnificent view, and then also looked down and saw what I had done. I threw my arms up in the air and I said, woohoo, I am not broken.
Awesome.
And in a second, my mindset changed. And it's not that my health changed or that my circumstances changed, but what I knew was possible changed. And what took me 8 hours to get up, only took me 4 hours to get down.
Right.
And that's when I dove right into mindset and understanding that what happens on the inside creates the outside. And I took my power back and stopped trying to control everything outside of me to make me feel better. And that led me to neuro-linguistic programming and mental emotional release. And that changed my life. And I knew that when I released my childhood trauma and I released all the unworthiness and all the imposter syndrome and felt so much freedom, that I couldn't not do this. And so I shifted and I went full time.
Awesome story, Suzanne. And it just proves that hitting rock bottom is one of the best ways to find your calling and unlock someone's true purpose. In your case, you experienced that shift while you had it all. And yet again, it did not compensate with jeopardizing your health. And I see it over and over again that people think wealth is the most important thing. Am I saying money is not important? No. But unfortunately, too many people chase wealth although they should chase health. Actually, I went through something very similar to your story, Suzanne. I was working for a very large American company down here in Spain and worked myself up into management. But after 6 years, my body just collapsed and had to be operated 4 times at my stomach in under 2 years. Anyhow, not only did I lose my job during that time, but also my marriage went down the drains because she couldn't handle my situation. That said, I know this sounds strange, but I don't regret 1 second that my life was turned upside down because I came out of it as a different person. I did not care one bit that I didn't have the sports cars, the big house, or the fat bank account anymore because I saw that being healthy is way more important than chasing wealth. However, fast forward to today, I bounced back and now run a successful coaching and consulting agency in Spain.
Isn't it fascinating, sorry, Oliver, that the most difficult times led us to our most fulfilling times?
I love that.
And right, so it's like it was the worst time, and thank God for that because it led me to where I am. And what I encourage people and your listeners is that when it feels really bad, keep going. Because your life isn't just your life. You're actually writing your legacy right now, and you're living what your story is going to be.
Oh, absolutely. We're all on a journey. Even if it's difficult and you're wondering, how am I ever going to get out of this alive? You will. And when you look back, you're going to say, I'm glad I went through all that because I'm a strong believer that all that happens to us happens for a reason and gets us ready to reach the next step. In other words, all we experience are lessons of life that pave the path to reach new heights.
You know what else that I'm so grateful for? Because I'm a really introspective, curious person. So I not always in the moment, but will look back and say, what did I learn from this? Mm-hmm. It's made me such a compassionate and judgment-free person that I think it's one of the reasons why I'm able to hold such a safe space for my clients and like a no judgment zone because, oh, let me tell you, I've made so many mistakes, quote unquote mistakes. And I've done so many things that I could be ashamed of, but it's made me who I am. I like who I am, and
of course.
And it's, and I'm here to help other people learn to love and trust themselves too. And so if I had gone through all of that, then maybe I wouldn't have been able to hold such a safe container. Maybe I wouldn't have been so compassionate. So I'm grateful.
Awesome. Suzanne, as we're talking about the ups and downs of life, let's talk about failure. Share with us a story of a time in your journey where you've experienced failure. Take us to that exact time in your life and tell us that story. And of course, share your lessons learned.
Well, I would have considered that a failure because that's what it felt like in the time. And the lessons that I got out of that were really to ask for help, to have boundaries, to trust myself. Because when I'm working around the clock and doing for everyone else and taking care of everyone else for myself, that's a boundaries issue. And it's also a lack of integrity with myself because I wasn't taking care of myself. I was making myself the last priority. And then the trust in myself, I think, was really important because I was searching for validation outside of myself. Then if I felt differently than what the world was showing me, then I thought that there was something wrong with me and that other people were right. I actually had a coach for 9 years during this process of when I burned out. And I needed to trust myself. And I think that was the biggest lesson. And then also probably to, and ask for help, not only from my kids, my partner, but also I meditate / pray / talk to my angels all the time. I hold my granddaughter and she's got a fussy tummy and I ask Archangel Raphael to just circle her with green, loving, healing light and help her. And I mean, so it's asking for help. And it's just being okay with who I am. And if people think that's too woo-woo and turn it off, then they're not my people, So I would say that was my failure and what I learned from it.
Well, there are many reasons why people don't want or can't ask for help, but it looks like people are starting to recognize that it's okay to ask for guidance and, in return, get help to reach the outcome they desire. But not only that, over the years, I had a few clients that just wanted to talk, and I asked each one, why? Why do you just want to talk and not follow through with our agenda for today? And they all pretty much answered the same. Because when I talk to you, you don't judge me, which shows people are taking coaches more serious than they did before. Because we should not forget, it wasn't even 20 years ago where people didn't even know why they would need a life coach, mindset coach, you name it. That said, if we look at the numbers, coaching is booming worldwide big time, as it's no longer this luxury commodity anymore that only the rich and famous can afford.
Yeah, it's amazing. And coaches along those same lines is not only when you feel really stuck and you're beating yourself up and you're trying to figure it out. Like I was raised to be a really strong, independent woman. Like I can do it myself. I can figure it out myself. And, it spent a lot of time. I love researching. I have this insatiable curiosity. But the thing is if you are jelly inside of a jar, you can't see the label from inside the jar.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a metaphor for life, right? Like when you're in it, it's difficult to see a different perspective. So someone who isn't related to you, so they don't have a stake in you seeing things differently or you changing or improving and how that will affect them, or your friends and family might not want to say something that ticks you off or that upsets you or that offends you, like, dude, wake up, or something like that. So a coach is someone that is outside of that. It's that third party that can hold space for you, reflect things back to you, help you see different perspectives, and you don't need fixed. Oftentimes we need to shed the stuff that we have adopted that's not even ours, that's not even our belief system.
Right.
Right. And we have all that we need inside of us. We're incredibly resourceful. We just need someone to ask the right questions and to have a different perspective and then tap into that. We have so much awareness and knowledge inside of us that need tapped in. And that's why I also think that I truly 100% believe that everyone needs a coach. When you look at successful actors, athletes, everyone has a coach.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't the most successful coaches have a coach? The most successful coaches have coaches.
So true.
Everyone needs a coach.
Couldn't agree with you more, but there's an issue with that. A huge misconception exists with understanding why someone needs a coach. However, it appears many people are more comfortable telling friends and family they're seeing a coach over a therapist because they associate going to therapy means they have some kind of mental issue. Although I have my take on that, which is a coach is actually a therapist and a consultant at the same time. Meaning, we help people to conquer their fears, overcome relationship problems, deal with career setbacks, and provide them with a sense of fulfillment. So, if you really look into it, we are 3 in 1. The easiest way to explain it is if we take an athlete as an example, how do they get better? By being coached to get better, right? And the same applies for getting a life coach, mindset coach, relationship coach. It does not matter what kind of coach. The point is, we can always get better in any part of our lives.
Well, and it's funny how so many of us spend time planning vacations, planning their retirement funds, planning to buy their next house. Even in corporate America, you have quarterly reviews. You spend time, where am I going? Where have I been? What do I need to work on? And yet we don't apply it to ourselves. Like you are your most valuable asset, and all that other stuff can go away. But you have you, and there's only one you.
True.
Right? There's only one me. There's only one you. And if you're feeling less than loving yourself or fulfilled, and can I please say, feeling all the feels, all the emotions is being human. So at no point do I ever try and rob someone of their process. Like you go through and feel all the emotions. It doesn't mean you have to be run by them. So how do you navigate the feelings? But why would you need someone to help you with your life? Because it's your life. And we're also not People used to say work-life balance, but the truth is when you're at work, it's not like you don't have a family or you don't have a sick dog or you don't have something else going home. You bring that with you to work.
Absolutely.
And when you're at home, it's not like you can't leave work at work. You bring work with you. We're an integrative being. And so having someone that can work with you to find that fulfillment and harmony and intrinsic joy, why not? This is your one life, right?
Well, work-life balance does not exist. And I had Elisa Dare Nelson on the show, and she made it very clear that it should be called work-life harmony, as everything should be in harmony with each other. And she totally nailed it with explaining why she sees it that way, with taking an orchestra as an example. So if you're interested in this topic, go check out episode number 2. Suzanne, is there anything you would have done differently before you began your career as a coach?
Anything I would have done differently? Oh, you know what? I probably would have, well, I don't know. I think everything happens for a reason. But I would say one thing would be I saved up for a year before I left my job. So that because I had to, put my son through college and had a whole bunch of other things that take care of my health. But I wish that I had had a separate income for longer as I built my coaching practice so that I didn't have the additional stress worrying about the income, so that I could do what I love because I love it and not think that I need a client. So, so many coaches that I've coached in the early stages, they say, I have this job, but it's draining me and I hate it and I want to just quit and that'll give me more time to spend coaching. And I say, do you have a full coaching roster? No, but I think that if I quit my job, then I would do more. Well, how about you prove that to yourself and you start building it now while you're also working and shift the meaning that you're giving to your job. Right. And see your job as and be grateful that you have this as you are building it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a perspective, maybe, that I wish I had changed, but it all worked out great. But I think that's one thing. And that is one thing that I hear over and over and over again from new coaches is that they want to quit their job thinking that will help them build their coaching practice faster. But the thing is when you're in fear, when you're in fight, flight, or freeze because you don't have the money coming in to pay your bills, then you can't show up fully. At least it's been my experience. It's hard to show up fully for someone else when you're in that fear and you think you need the money. So just take that component out of it.
Oh yeah, it definitely makes it easier to step into coaching if you have money saved. And I agree with you that it must be difficult to serve others fully if you're struggling to pay the bills. Luckily, in my case, I had my marketing agency that was backing me up. Not forgetting, I was consulting and gradually moved into coaching. That said, even if you have a job and you want to move into coaching, I believe it's all down to how committed you are to make your coaching business work. Because I see far too many coaches that still work their 9-to-5 job and never got their coaching off the ground because they didn't know how to generate clients, which is a crucial component if you want to leave your 9-to-5 job.
Exactly. And it really helps to do what you love in both arenas. So you have your agency and you're also doing coaching. So that, that's awesome.
Yeah, it almost couldn't be better. Now, Suzanne, I would like that you share a story when you experienced a aha moment. Take us back to that very moment and share with us the steps you took to turn that moment into success.
The aha moment that comes to me is my ability to affect my reality. But that kind of sounds funny. So I'll just explain it. I realized that when I closed down my energy, when I had, after burning out from corporate America, and even though when I opened up my coaching practice, my NLP coaching practice, I was flooded immediately. Because I was so passionate about it and you could see it in my eyes and in my face. And when I would just go talk to anyone about it, they would sign up because we all have trauma and things that we want to let go of. And I was overwhelmed and I didn't want to work that hard. And so I would close off my energy and I would mentally say, if they cancel, that's okay. Or I would just block out my calendar so that people couldn't sign up. And then I would then say, oh, I don't have the income. So then I would do EFT tapping. I would do my mindset work. I would get my energy back up, and I would go, I am open for business. And I want clients, and I am finding freedom in the clients, and I'm not going to burn out because I'm doing what I love. And I would energetically, and I would set my intentions to be open for business. I would get flooded with clients again. And so my aha was how much my energy and my mindset and my intention matters. Right. So my aha was just to really stay in touch with my why, understand my boundaries, understand what I really want, what I want to create, what I want to offer, what that looks like, and understand how much freedom there is in that. So that when I remembered that I get to do it differently, like just because I have a full schedule doesn't mean that I'm working for someone else or doing something that I don't like. I'm actually more energized at the end of a coaching session than when I begin. And so when I, again, change the way I look at things, then those things change. Then it was a very consistent, stream. And I have the best clients. So even my granddaughter was born 3 weeks ago, and I took 2 weeks off, and I told my clients, I don't know when she was going to be born. It's going to be about this time, but I'm going to be offline. And so they all knew, and they sent me texts and calls, and they were so excited for me. And so I was just my aha is just being very intentional with my why and what I want to create and who I want to create it with and who I want to play with. And that comes to me.
Interesting. Suzanne, what do you believe is the one common myth about being a mindset coach that you want to debunk?
I don't know if there's a myth. One thing that I remind any potential client that I work with is that I'm a mindset coach, and NLP is modeled after success, and there's processes to help people move very, very quickly. But I can't do something to you. It is a do with process, which means you actually have to do the work. I can lead you somewhere. I can suggest something, but you have to be an active participant in it. So doing the hypnosis, the energy work, the NLP, it's a partnership. So I send coaching partnership agreements to my clients. So I guess the myth is like, okay, I need you to fix me. I need you to NLP me. And I just laugh, and I totally get that. But let's go through what you're going through so you could be aware of it. Let's get some awareness, and then let's help you release it. So I would say that's it, is that people do the work, but it's really quick and it's really fun, and it's extremely freeing. Because I don't know about you, but for so long, I had decades of therapy to work through my childhood trauma, and I was still stuck. It led me to what happened, what I explained earlier. And people think that it has to be hard. But just like when you quit smoking, you decided in an instant. It doesn't have to be hard. I guess that's the myth. The myth is it has to be hard, and it doesn't.
Most of the times, our imbalances are invariably responses to something that happened in the past, maybe in the face of a viciously competitive parent. Having lived around a parent disgusted by the body, so sex became frightening for us. Surrounded by material unreliability, so we thought we had to overachieve around money and social prestige. Or hurt by a dismissive parent, we fell into patterns of emotional avoidance. Unfortunately, not only do we forget what triggered our behavior over the years, but rather don't know how to interpret them. And I try to dissect it for people in a very gentle fashion so they catch up to what I see, what's going on in them. Fact of the matter is, all starts in our childhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so true. Someone, I was talking with someone, she goes, you know who your ideal client is? And I said, who? She goes, anyone who was once a child. And I laughed because I work with coaches and hypnotherapists and emotional freedom technique specialists and the people, the light workers of the world and the service oriented people. And they say, they've done so much work on themselves, and yet they're blaming their husband, or they're blaming, something about money, or blaming something else. And I listen, I ask questions, and then I take them right back to their childhood, and they go, damn it, It's
Yeah.
my childhood, really? And
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's when they laugh. And it's because we're a sponge when we're younger and we are creating meanings with in this like delta brainwave, and we're just soaking everything in like a sponge, and we create meaning out of it. And we create our values, which is our deepest level of programming.
Yeah.
And we create our beliefs about the world and ourselves and the people around us by the time, we're 3, and some people say by the time they're 6. We also get it generationally. So there have been tons of studies that now emotions and beliefs are passed down generationally. So if you look at, even the people who survived the concentration camps and, their generations, they've got some fears that are linked back to that can all be cleared with this mental emotional release work that I do. But it goes back to then, and because our unconscious mind is so powerful, it's able to store those memories, and then it brings up when we're triggered by people or when we overreact in situations. It's an indication that there's something inside that's ready to be healed. But what most of us have been trained to do is shove it down, and we shove it down, and we shove it down. And these overreactions, or these, when people trigger us, it's kind of like you can only hold a beach ball underwater for so long before it pops up and hits you in the face. And so we learn to shove it down and to not be ourselves when we're young, when it's like, stop crying, don't be mad, or you're too big, or go to your room, you don't want that, you're full, or you need to eat more. And we're constantly told how to feel, what we want, and to stop listening to ourselves. And that just carries on later in life. So.
Now, before, I took bad parents as an example, but let's turn that around and now take ordinary parents as an example. Normally, no parent wants anything bad happening to their child, right? But yet again, they do so much wrong. As we know, the most important years for any child growing up is up until around 5 years, where they get programmed. I don't like using that word, but let's just roll with it. Now, the best way to program them is to talk the language of the mind. And the most efficient way I know in doing that is to study NLP. So if you're a parent or you know one, go get yourself an NLP book and read through it. That said, I highly recommend you hop over to Amazon and grab a copy of a book called The Essential Guide to Neuro-linguistic Programming by Suzanne Sanders. You'll be amazed how your mind will shift after you have read this book.
I just had so many thoughts with that. Because my favorite people to work with, it's part of my why, part of my mission, are parents. But I don't say that I'm a parenting coach, but I love to help parents because it's so much responsibility and it's so important. And I've worked with so many parents who tie their identity to their kids and make sure that they behave a certain way, that they do a certain thing, but they're parenting the way that they were parented, or they parent completely opposite of the way they were parented. But either way, they're doing it through their model of the world, through their lens, through their values, instead of seeing the child as who they are. And loving and embracing and being present with who they are. So my favorite parenting tip is to clean up your own stuff, and you'll be amazed at how much better your relationship with your kids are, and how much different, the behavioral changes in your children, whether your children are children or if they're adult children, right? Anyone who is a child, when you change, the things around you change.
True.
And so that's the number one thing, is if there are behavioral issues. And I work with 18-year-olds. I have several 22-year-old clients. I've worked with 25-year-old clients. And then I also have the 55-year-old clients. And both age groups is they're looking for meaning, and they're looking for identity, and they're looking for who they are, and they are ready to shed who they're not. They don't know that that's what it is, with the anxiety and the overwhelm that they're feeling. But anyway, it stems back to childhood.
Now let's shift gears, Suzanne. Do you see it as a requirement, being certified as a coach, or do you think people can start their coaching business and get certified later on?
Yeah, I think that for me personally, it wasn't important. What was important for me was to be congruent. I did a lot of reading, I took a lot of workshops, took a lot of classes, made the change in me, and was able to help people before doing it as a profession. Although I did get certified as a health coach and as a functional medicine coach, way before I started being a practitioner, and which is really funny. My tagline is powered by purpose. So I totally get what you're saying. And, but I've coached coaches who say, I can't get started. I have to get the certification to be taken seriously. And the funny thing is no one ever asks me if I'm certified. They just want results. They just want to know, how can you help me?
Bam.
What's possible for me?
That's what it is at the end of the day. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So so I think it's an individual decision. I know that Tony Robbins has expressed, his frustration that it's, people can be life coaches without being certified. I think it's a personal decision. I think it's also a responsibility to do your own work and make sure that you've done your own work before trying to help others, because it's not about giving advice, or it's not about fixing someone. It's about helping them come up with their own answers. It's very individualized. And I don't know that certification necessarily gives you that, although there's a lot of great schools that help you with the tools and that also actually help you do your own work in the process. So I have a love for learning. I think everyone is different. So does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The thing is this, I see far too many coaches paralyze themselves with thinking, I can't start before I get certified, which couldn't be further from the truth. We should not forget, most established organizations need you to be able to show them that you have so many hours under your belt, meaning that you can prove that you have experience. With that said, why should you get certified? Because it gives you structure and a framework to work off from, but it does not make you automatically a better coach. You need to be able to lead people to the outcome they desire without a certification. If you can't, you have no business getting into coaching. One thing is for sure, no certification is going to get anybody magically new clients. Did you know 87% of coaches or consultants from around the globe go out of business in their first year? And the main reason why they go out of business is because they didn't figure out how to generate a steady stream of new clients. Therefore, my team and I have created a workshop that outlines exactly what we do to generate a consistent stream of new clients month in, month out for our business and for our clients. So if you're a coach or consultant and you're committed to changing more lives with your expertise, then I encourage you to register for the free masterclass. Just imagine to never wonder where your next clients are going to come from next month. And all you need to do to make that a reality is head over to clientsindroves.com. That's clientsindroves.com and register for the free training. Suzanne, are you ready for the Thunder Round?
Okay, here we go.
All right, let's do it. If you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't, and what would the answer be to that question?
It would be, what do you love about what you do? And the other one would be, what are some of the successes that your clients have had? My answer would be, why I love doing what I do is because I want to create a ripple effect of kindness in the world that we so desperately need right now. And when people feel good, they do good, and we need more people feeling good about themselves. That's my favorite thing. And that's why I do what I do.
If you could go back in time and meet the 20-year-old Suzanne, what advice would you give yourself?
My advice would be trust yourself, because I almost swore, because stuff is going to happen in your life and it's going to be really, really hard. And it's going to be really important to know that it's all going to work out okay. Just trust yourself.
What is the one thing most people don't know about you?
I'm wide open. I'm really authentic. So I don't know what that would be. I'm an open book. So I don't know what people don't know about me. Probably that I'm more spiritual than I talk about.
What is the best advice you have ever received?
The best advice that I've ever received is, it's all the path. Keep going.
Now, before I ask you about your favorite book, talk about your book, which is not quite finished yet.
I am writing a book about helping people become who they are. And yet I also want to call it Unbecoming, because it's unbecoming who you're not so that you can actually be who you are. And it is, very practical strategies and stories about how important it is to be authentically who you are and how much the world needs what only you have to offer.
And do you have a date when you're going to publish it?
October 7th.
October 7th, 2020.
Yes.
All right, cool. Then let's wrap up this podcast with the last question, and then we'll say goodbye. Who do you specifically work with, and who should contact you if they want to work with you? Basically, who is your ideal client, Suzanne?
My ideal client is, joking, like I said before, anyone who was once a child. No, but really the people that they're feeling like there's something more to life than the way that they're living, that they've got the success, and they're unfulfilled and they're overwhelmed and they have some shame and guilt and they're stuck and they don't know why they're not happy. I love helping them break through that and find that intrinsic joy and help them tap back into who they truly are, because that shifts everything else in their life. It helps them become better leaders, better parents, better partners, better selves, which creates a better world.
So if you want to connect with Suzanne, head on over to SuzannePalmerwood.com or visit CoachesSpotlight.com and type Suzanne in the search bar, and you'll find the show notes to this episode and all the links that lead to Suzanne. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Suzanne, it was a real pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you for tuning in to the Coaches Spotlight podcast. If you liked the show, then please make sure to rate us, leave a review, and subscribe. We appreciate your support. See you next time.